Hey guys, Jonathan here, and today I'll be building more characters from Marvel Rivals. Now, just a couple months ago, I did a part 1 of this video, and with more skins having dropped and more Lego pieces having dropped, I went ahead and made even more characters for Marvel Rivals, which was a ton of fun. Of course, I'd love to keep this trend going, so if you'd like to see me do that, just let me know in the comments, and without further ado, let's get into part 2 of how to build Marvel Rivals in Lego. So starting off with the simplest figure, we have Antivenom, and the reason this is the simplest is because there are no changes made to this figure beyond what you can actually get in the Antivenom versus Spider-Man mech set that is out right now on store shelves. If you're watching this video way in the future, well, I'm sorry, that set's no longer available, but if you're watching it right now, you can go buy this figure on a store shelf, which makes it the easiest one to make in this entire collection. The next easiest figure is the Thor Love and Thunder variant suit, which of course is from the movie Love and Thunder, so thankfully we have a Lego minifigure representation of that. The only thing we need to change is of course giving him Mjolnir, which does come in the set with Thor, but it's not his accessory. So if you get either of the Thor Love and Thunder sets, both come with a Mjolnir that you can just put in Thor's hand, and then you can have this suit from Marvel Rivals. The superior Iron Man armor only requires one minifig and an extra part. That minifig, of course, is the Iron Man Mark II armor from the year 2020, and adding this shoulder armor, which you can get on Whiplash from Marvel, although it's been used in other places. It just adds a little bit of bulk and makes this figure accurate, and since you only need one extra piece, he's still one of the easier ones to make. So in the game, we have some variant suits from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 for characters like Rocket, Star-Lord, and Mantis. These are pretty simple to make, and I wanted to give you guys a few options. The simplest, of course, would just be Mantis right out of the box, because, well, it works pretty good for what we get in the game. But if you look on Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon, I added the printed arms from Captain Carter from the Marvel Collectible Minifigure Series 1, because you get that nice red arm print there and some black detailing. So if you have those arms from Captain Carter and you want to upgrade them here, you can do that on Rocket and Star-Lord, or if you just want to keep them dark blue like the official minifig, you can just use Mantis. So this one is still one of the easier ones to make, but let's keep moving forward. Now, Moon Knight is pretty simple too, because the main thing I used here is the CMF Series 2 version of Moon Knight, but I did use the handcuff trick where I cut the chain off of minifigure handcuffs, then put the cuffs back on the arm to add a little bit of bulk, but beyond that, the minifigure here is just the one that came out of the CMF boxes, so no changes are made, but he's ranked as slightly more difficult than everybody so far, because if you don't already have this minifig, he's selling for a pretty decent amount of money, so we gotta take that into consideration, that he's not quite as easy to get. For similar reasons, Magneto is ranked on the easier side, but also an expensive minifig to get, because this version of Magneto is only available in the expensive X-Men Mansion that's on store shelves right now. That being said, I did add purple hips here just to add a little bit more detail like we see in the game, but overall, it is a figure you can buy in a set right now. It's just an expensive set, which makes him a little bit more difficult for the average builder to make. Now, building the No Way Home suit from the game is pretty interesting because we actually did get the Iron Spider suit in the Infinity War sets back in 2018 in the Sanctum, and now in 2025, we're actually getting a new Iron Spider in the Endgame Final Battle and the Iron Spider Bust set, but those sets aren't out as of this video dropping, so I'm using the 2018 one, which had great arm printing, an awesome torso print, decent legs, although I wish they had side printing or were dual molded, and then of course moving up to the head, this is the 2019 comic book style Spider-Man head, so you only need 2 figures to make what you see here, but both of those figures are retired, making him a little bit more difficult to obtain. We have a Multiverse of Madness skin for Scarlet Witch, which translates pretty well into Lego, since thankfully we did get a Multiverse of Madness Wanda in the Sanctum set, which is now retired, but they are out there, so that's where the headpiece with the printing on it, and the torso came from. Then, of course, I took a little bit of black Sharpie to the fingers of her hands to make them look like she's being taken over by the Darkhold. Just used dark red arms here with the skirt piece from the Endgame Scarlet Witch from a few years ago, and these legs from the Star Wars Imperial Engineer to add a little bit more detail to the legs. Here we have Namor from Wakanda Forever, who is a little bit easier to build because the hairpiece, the torso, and legs come from the Wakanda Forever version of Namor, the arms come from Tarantula from LEGO DC, and the head comes from Tasu Leech from Star Wars The Force Awakens. Infinity War Captain America is a little bit of a mix of an easy to build figure and difficult. Of course, the head and torso come from the 2018 Nomad version of Captain America, but those short sleeved arms, which sadly don't have dark blue sleeves because LEGO hasn't made that color combination yet, but these ones have black on top, which do mesh pretty well and look good. Those come from Ethan Hunt from LEGO Dimensions from Mission Impossible, with dark brown gloves and dual molded legs with black on bottom and blue on top, with the hairpiece from the Drifter from DC, the Batman sets, but of course that hairpiece has been used in a lot of places. I just like to reference something from superheroes since that's probably something you might have in your collection. Alright, now things are starting to get pretty darn difficult. This is Wolverine in his Deadpool and Wolverine variant costume. Of course, this gives us the torso and legs from the original 2012 Wolverine. Then I used this shoulder piece that came from the Taser armor from Iron Man, although I do believe it's been used in a handful of other places, although it's not a very common piece regardless. He does have matching yellow arms to the suit here with blue gloves, and then one of the Wolverine heads that has the white over his eyes for the mask, and the original Wolverine cowl that was used in 2014 and then used again, I believe, in 2022, if memory serves correctly. That's kind of that darker yellow shade that matches the yellow of the torso, which is what everything's based around. Hawkeye is up next. I love this suit variant in the game and the way it turned out, but to translate it to LEGO, I tried to keep it as simple as possible. I used the swept to the side hair that you see here, pretty common like on Star-Lord, Captain America, and many others. Then the head and torso come from the 2020 version of Hawkeye, ironically based off of another video game. He's got those short-sleeved arms that we pulled from Ethan Hunt, just mentioned a moment ago with Captain America, with purple gloves to help bring a little more purple color scheme into the figure, with black legs, a quiver on the back, and of course a bow and arrow. Here we have the punk version of the Hulk, which was a little bit challenging to try and translate into LEGO, but that LEGO movie Batman movie, that is, Joker hairpiece, really helps seal the deal for me. So that's where the hair comes from the LEGO Batman movie Joker, with the head and torso from the Marvel logo version of the Hulk. I used the handcuff trick on this side with a black pair of handcuffs to bulk him up a little bit, with a brown utility belt and these legs from the polybag version of the Hulk from Age of Ultron in 2015. Here we have Zombie Doctor Strange, who, when translated into Marvel Rivals, actually isn't gray. He's more of like an off-tan color, and he has those really interesting sunken-in eyes that are more white in the game than anything. So what I used here is the head from Emperor Palpatine from his most recent appearance in the Star Wars Advent Calendar, of course giving him the matching hands with dark red arms on the torso and legs from Dead Doctor Strange from the Sanctum Sanctorum modular from years back. Of course, I gave him some swept-back black hair from Ulysses Claw or from Bruce Wayne from the LEGO Batman movie, and I used this vampire-style tunic here for his cape with the ripped-up edges. Of course, you could use like a Dementor cape that has like the holes in it and is all torn up, but this is what I went with here, and I dig it quite a bit. Now, before we get to our two most difficult figures to build, I thought I would shout out Jeff the Land Shark. This is a mock build that I did for the Part 1 video mentioned earlier, and although I already explained how to make this or my approach to making it in my last video, I thought I would shout it out here in case you haven't seen that one yet and you wanted to try to build Jeff. I'm not 100% sure how to explain it without doing instructions, so I'll just remove that piece, and then you could kind of like look at this and pause the video to see. It's a relatively simple build in terms of the pieces needed, but there are a lot of techniques where I'm building in very different directions, so I'll give them one final spin around so that you can see the pieces used and everything. I wish that I could color match it a little better, but given the pieces I have in my spare parts bin, this was the best color combo I could do. It would be fun to do a Bricklink order and try to get all the pieces in the same color, but for right now, I am pretty happy with the way Jeff turned out. Alright, Luna Snow comes in as our second most difficult figure to make in this showcase because the torso comes from Killer Frost from DC, which was retired many years ago. The head comes from Captain Carter, which was retired years ago. And the hair is from the CMF Cruella de Vil, which, once again, was retired a long time ago. Of course, I put a black arm and a white arm with tan hands, white hips, and black legs to finish it out. I think this turned out pretty good, all things considered, but again, not a very easy figure to make since you do need a lot of retired pieces to do so. And finally, our most difficult figure to make is the Invisible Woman. Haha, here she is appearing right on camera. This figure is so difficult to make because the torso comes from Exoforce from like 20 years ago. So I think this torso works really, really well for Sue from the game. But of course, that torso is like 2 decades old, so it's certainly not easy to obtain by today's standards. The hair and head come from Aurora from the LEGO Disney CMF Series 3, aka the Disney 100 series. Ironically, the arms come from Frozone from the Disney CMF Series 2, and she's got white legs to finish the look. The majority of the parts here are relatively cheap to track down, but that torso being so old makes it a little bit more difficult to find out there, so that's why I've ranked her as the most difficult figure to make here. That being said, let's go ahead and round out the video and call it a day. Alright guys, let me know what Marvel Rivals skins and characters you still would like to see me make in future installments. This was a ton of fun. I'm having a great time doing it. Hope you guys are still enjoying Marvel Rivals, the game, as it continues to grow and blow up, and I'll see you guys on the next video.